Right, everyone looking forward, please. Good morning, Year 11s. Today's assembly is about the start of the journey, the start of the rest of your lives. In 2 years' time, all of you will have been finishing your A-levels. In 3 years' time, you'll be studying across the world, studying at the university of your choice. In 5 years' time, you'll have started your careers. Many of you will be in this room working for the top institutions across the globe. You will then get married. You then may buy a house. In 10 years' time, your life will be set for you. In 15 years, you'll be 30. And from then on, your path in your life will be set.
I'm sorry, Mr. Headmaster. Let me tell you why that approach may fail you. I know people who graduated at 21 and didn't get a job till they were 27. I know people who graduated late at 25 and they found work immediately. I know people who never went to university but found what they love at 18. I know people who found a job straight out of college, making decent money, but hate what they do. I know people who took gap years and found their purpose. I know people who were so sure about what they were going to do at 16 and changed their mind at 26. I know people who have children but are single. And I know people who are married but have had to wait 8 to 10 years to have children. I know people in relationships who love someone else. I know people who love each other but aren't together. So my point is, everything in life happens according to our time, our clock. You may look at some of your friends and think that they're ahead of you, or maybe some of them you feel are behind. But everything happens at their own pace. They have their own time and clock, and so do you. Be patient. At age 25, Mark Cuban was a bartender in Dallas. It took till 32 for J.K. Rowling to be published for Harry Potter after being rejected by 12 publishers. Ortega launched Zara when he was 39. Jack Ma started Alibaba when he was 35. Morgan Freeman got his big break at 52. Steve Carell only got his break after 40 years old. Virgin was started by Richard Branson at 34. Getting your degree after 25 is still an achievement. Not being married at 30 but still happy is beautiful. Starting a family after 35 is still possible. And buying a house after 40 is still great. Don't let anyone rush you with their timelines. Because as Einstein said, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that's counted truly counts. And this is the most important thing. I want you to be able to create meaningful, purposeful, fulfilling lives for yourselves and learn how to use that to make an impact and a difference in the lives of others. That will be true success. The story goes that Marcus Aurelius hired an assistant to follow him as he walked through the Roman town square. The assistant's only role was to, whenever Marcus Aurelius was praised, whisper in his ear, "You're just a man, you're just a man." They say two things define us: our patience when we have nothing and our humility when we have everything. You know, the greatest thinkers on the planet believe that they're perpetual learners, perpetual students of reality and of life. And it was actually Maya Angelou who said that actually I've learned that I still have a lot to learn. The person that we will become in 5 years is defined by the people that we spend time with today and the books that we read today. That's why who we associate with, who we spend time with, who we absorb our energy with will really define what's on our mind. And often what limits our learning is that we believe we already know. We believe that we already have knowledge. We already believe that we have the answer. But actually opening up ourselves to learn from the people around us, selectively choosing people who can be guides and wise advisors. We often find that this feeling of knowing makes us actually judge others and criticize others. And that's why we see that judging is critical, but observing can be educational. And therefore, we should be so focused on improving ourselves that we don't have any energy to criticize anyone else. And when we're focusing on improving ourselves, we'll surround ourselves by people who challenge the way we think, who question the way we behave. And that's why if you're looking around and you find yourself being the smartest person in the room, change rooms, you're in the wrong one. You want to be around people who lift up the way you think, who lift up your mindset, who really take you to new dimensions and horizons that you could never ever imagine yourself. I believe that we should never let compliments get to our head and never let criticism get to our heart, because when we do that, we can start to build with genuineness and authenticity. When we're humble, we can actually grow and rise up and always feel that we're learning, always feel that we're developing, always feel that someone can share insight at any moment that can change our lives. Have you ever found it that similar situations keep coming into your life and actually nothing ever goes away until it teaches you what you needed to learn? So when we don't extrapolate lessons from situations, we have to take that test again. We almost have to learn that lesson again, and therefore simultaneous or repetitive situations keep approaching us in our lives. When we realize that we're students for life, instead of making people see how powerful we are, we'll want people to understand how powerful they are, and we'll learn how to empower others. We'll actually attract people to work with us to achieve our goals. They say it's better to know how to learn than to know. Because when we know how to learn, it becomes a habit, it becomes part of our mindset, it becomes a part of the way that we daily navigate life. We're trying to draw lessons from every person, every situation, every interaction, every moment that can actually teach us something about ourselves, teach us something about society, teach us something about our world, teach us something about how we can interact with that space. And that's why Brian Herbert said, the capacity to learn is a gift, the ability to learn is a skill, but the willingness to learn is a choice. Monk life is ultimately training in self-actualization and self-awareness. It's meant to start when you're 5. The problem is we all went to normal schools that try to put stuff in us rather than take stuff out of us.
It's crazy.
You talk about this,
right?
Like, you know, you were told at school that you weren't very good and you weren't good at English, and now you have a New York Times bestseller, right? And it's like, but no one noticed that potential inside you. No one noticed that, oh, Lewis was really creative. And you're not the only person. There's so many people who feel like that. So the modern schooling system didn't extrapolate your self-actualization, your element, and just try to put maths, English, science inside. So the point is that you're trying to get to such a strong foundation that when you interact in the world, you're going with a sense of strength, fuel, energy to make a difference, rather than going into the world and then going, oh my God, where am I, trying to figure it out. And I find what happens today is that when you don't, we all know this, self-love has become such a big thing now. And when people don't figure out, it's like a huge trend now. But my point is that if you don't start at a place where you have self-awareness, self-actualization, you have figured out what works for you, what your strengths are, how you want to be in an environment, when you walk out there, most of us just pretend to be someone else. Most of us get lost, most of us get carried away. So my point is, strengthen yourself, grow yourself, and then of course interact with the world. So we had that. And that's what I noticed when I lived as a monk, that people were so far removed from their own understanding of themselves that they were either lost living a life they didn't want to, lost living up to someone else's expectations, or lost becoming someone to impress someone else. And so people were their real identity is almost buried under 6 feet of multiple identities they've created. And And that's what I started to notice. We have a social media identity, we have a LinkedIn identity, we have a Twitter identity, we have a Facebook identity. Then we have an identity we are to our boss. Then we have an identity we are with our Friday night friends. Then we have an identity we are to our Sunday people. And we just created all of these identities. And if you ask people, who are you? We struggle to answer that question. And so as a monk, you're just taught to dig deeper beyond all those identities and kind of, again, bring out yourself rather than define yourself. So that was what I noticed. I just started to notice that people had a big lack of self-actualization. They were very disconnected from what they wanted, needed, and understood about themselves. And most people's identities were crafted by the reflection in this mirror of their mum, dad, friends, boss, partner, whatever.